Hey my friend, it's Denise from loomahead.com, and this time I'm teaching you how to knit the pyramid stitch cowl. The project is brought to you by the Hook Nook with American Crafts. And you're going to be needing a loom with at least 34 pegs, 165 yards of worsted weight yarn, hook, needle, scissors, and an optional 6 stitch markers. You ready? Let's begin by wrapping 34 pegs, and then we're going to knit the row. You're going to secure a single strand of worsted weight yarn to the anchor peg, and I'm going to use a simple knot. You can use a slip knot if you're more comfortable. And then going from left to right, counterclockwise, we're going to wrap those 34 pegs. By the way, both the loom and the yarn that I'm using on this video are from the Hook Nook collection. We're knitting flat, so when you get to peg 34, turn around. You're going in the opposite direction. Get your hook and knit off peg 34, and it's going to do this little funky thing right here. Get the working yarn and tighten it. Bring that knot as close to the peg as you can and half wrap that peg and knit off. So you're knitting that peg 34 2 times, and now tighten the stitch, and we're using the flat version of the knit stitch, so you're just going to lay the yarn flat over the peg, over the existing loop, and knit off. Once you knit off peg 1, you're done with your cast on, and you're ready for the setup row, which we will call row 0. And you're going to start off with your edge, which is a knit 4, purl 1, then knit 24, and you'll end with your second edge, which will be a purl 1, knit 4. Now we're going to be using the U-wrap version of the knit stitch, so take the working yarn, put it over the existing loop, half wrap, knit off. Okay, take the working yarn, place it over the existing loop, half wrap the peg, and take the bottom one over the top. Half wrap your peg, take the bottom loop over the top, and knit off. That's knit 3. Here's knit 4, half wrap and knit off. Now for the 5th peg, which is your purl 1, you're going to take the working yarn and put it under the existing loop. Take your hook over the top loop and scoop up that working yarn to create a new loop. Here you go. That's the new loop. You're going to take the old loop off the peg, put the new loop on, and pull the working yarn to tighten the string. That was your edge, and now you have to knit those 24 pegs. So go ahead and continue using the U-wrap version of the knit stitch. So you half wrapped your peg and you knit off. Keep going. You need 24 in total before you do your second edge. Once you finish those 24 knit stitches and you come to your edge, you're going to again do that purl stitch, right? And then you're going to knit 4 knit stitches, and feel free to use either the U-wrap or the flat version of the knit stitch. Either one of them works fine. Once you knit off peg 34, you are done with that setup row, and you're ready for row 1, where you will knit an edge of a knit 1, purl 4, then do purl 1, knit 7 until the last 5 stitches, where you'll do an edge of 4 purls and 1 knit stitch. So we'll start this odd numbered row with a knit 1, purl 4, and that's how we start all of our odd numbered rows, with the same edge, knit 1, purl 4, and then we're going to do an 8 stitch pattern here of a purl 1, knit 7. So here is the first set of those 8 stitches, but we need 3 sets of these 8 stitches 3 times in total. So that was my first one, and now here's my repeat of those 8 stitches, which is a purl 1, knit 7, and now I'm going to repeat that again. All right, so purl 1 and then knit 7, and once I've done those sets, I'm going then to do the edge now on the other end, which is purl 4 and knit 1, and that's how I will end every odd numbered row, like 1, 3, 5, 7, for instance. All right, then you're ready for row 2, which, like all even numbered rows, will be a knit 4, purl 1, knit 24, and end with a purl 1, knit 4. So we start our edge with the knit 4, and then we're going to do the purl 1. And I want you to understand that on the even numbered rows like this one, like row 2, you're doing the edges and the knit 24 on all even numbered rows exactly the same. So you're going to do that knit 4, purl 1, and then this knit 24, and then you're going to end with the purl 1 and knit 4 exactly the same. It's the exact same row, same pattern of this row, same 34 stitches on all even numbered rows. So we're doing these knit 24. We're going to do the same thing on row 4, on row 6, on row 8. It will be exactly the same. It will start and end with the same stitches. Row 3 is an odd numbered row, and so your edges will always start with a knit 1, purl 4, and then the 8 stitch pattern is the one that will change. In this case, it's a purl 2, knit 5, purl 1 until the last 5, where you will do a purl 4, knit 1, which is an edge, and with the odd numbers, it will always stay the same. So we start with the edge, which is the knit 1, purl 4, and you guys already know how to do the knits and the purls. And then we will start that 8 stitch pattern, which will be a purl 2, knit 5, purl 1. And remember that the 8 stitch pattern, which we're looking at here, is done 3 times. So here's my first round of the purl 2, knit 5, and then I will repeat those 8 stitches 2 more times, right, for a total of 3 times, and then close that row with my edge. Row 4 is an even numbered row, and so just like all the other ones, it will start with an edge of a knit 4, purl 1, then knit 24, and end with a purl 1, knit 4. So here's a clip of the last even number knitting I'm going to show you, because from now on you guys are expert and I don't have to keep showing you that it's a knit 4, purl 1, knit 24, purl 1, knit 4 for all even numbered rows. Row 5 is an odd numbered row, and so we're going to start with the usual edge for an odd number, which is a knit 1, purl 4. Then the 8 stitch pattern, which changes, is going to be a purl 3, knit 3, purl 2, repeat those 3 times, and then you're going to end with the purl 4, knit 1. And so we start with our edge, which is a knit 1, purl 4. And once we get that edge done, we're going to now start the 8 stitch pattern. So we're going to do 3 purl stitches. Here's my second and my third. Then we're going to do 3 knit stitches, and by the way, here are flat stitches, which is another option you can use in your pattern to use the flat. It's okay. And then we're going to do 2 purl stitches. So I go back and forth on flat and you wrap. It's okay. Remember that you're going to do 3 repeats of the 8 stitch pattern. So here's second, here would be where I would knit my third, and then you're going to end with that edge, which is purl 4, knit 1. Next we're ready for row 6, and like all even numbered rows, you have the same pattern, which is knit 4, purl 1, then you knit 24 and finish with the purl 1, knit 4. For your next row, which is an odd number, row 7, you're going to start with the usual edge, which is a knit 1, purl 4. Then your 8 stitch pattern is purl 4, knit 1, purl 3 until the last 5 stitches when you're going to do your other edge, which is the purl 4, knit 1. So again, we're going to start with the edge of the knit 1, purl 4, which is exactly the same on all odd number rows, and then you're going to go into that 8 stitch pattern, which here is a purl 4, knit 1, purl 3. And I am sure you guys are seeing the pattern, right? You can almost picture it in your head, because remember that the triangles, the little pyramids, they're big and then they get smaller. So that's why you see the changes in those purl and knits on the 8 stitch repeat. Now remember, you got 2 more times to do it, and then you're going to do the edge, which is the purl 4, knit 1. Next is another even numbered row. So you're knitting from left to right, and you're going to do the same pattern. Knit 4, purl 1, knit 24, purl 1, knit 4. Number 9 is odd numbered. So you know you're going to start with that same edge, which is the knit 1, purl 4, then your 8 stitch pattern, which is knit 4, purl 1, knit 3, and you're going to end with the purl 4, knit 1. So let's go ahead and start that edge, which is that knit 1, purl 4, and as you see, we're going from right to left, right? It's always that same knit 1, purl 4, and then the 8 stitch pattern. And this is where you're actually doing the little tip of the pyramid. That's why you're doing knit 4, purl 1, and then knit 3. Repeat that pattern 2 more times on this row, and then you're going to do your edge, which is your purl 4, knit 1. Row 10 is another even numbered row, and what I want you guys to pay attention to is that everything is knit stitches except for those 2 purl stitches. So if you mark them, it's super easy. Knit 4, purl 1, knit 24, purl 1, knit 4. Alright, we're on row 11, and of course we're going to do the edge, which is the knit 1, purl 4, because this is your purl of your border. And then you're going to do the knit 3, purl 3, knit 2, and your border, which is a purl 4, knit 1. So do your knit 1, purl 4 edge, which again you guys already know how to do, and we're going to move on to that 8 stitch knit 3, purl 3, knit 2 stitch pattern, right? So we do those 3 knit stitches. You're going to do your 3 purl stitches, 1, 2, and 3, and then those 2 knit stitches. So you see that I'm using the flat. That's okay, you could use either one. Repeat that twice and do your edge of the purl 4, knit 1 pattern, and you're ready for your next even row, which is 12, again with the knit 4, purl 1, knit 24, purl 1, knit 4. For lucky 13, you're going to do your edge of your knit 1, purl 4, and then go into the stitch pattern, knit 2, purl 5, knit 1. Repeat that 2 more times, and then do your edge, which is the purl 4, knit 1. Alright, don't give up on me now. You're going to do that edge, knit 1, purl 4, and then start the 8 stitch pattern of the knit 2, purl 5, knit 1, and you guys know that that 8 stitch pattern needs to be repeated, right? So once you finish doing those 5 purls and that 1 knit stitch, you start that stitch pattern 2 more times and end with your 4 purls and knit 1. You know that 14 is an even number, right? So you're going to do the same thing, knit 4, purl 1, knit 24, and finish the row with a purl 1, knit 4, just like all the other even times. Row 15, I'm sure I don't even need to show you anymore. You're going to knit 1, purl 4, and then your 8 stitch pattern is knit 1, purl 7 until the last 5, where you will purl 4, knit 1, and row 16, which is the last row in the pattern, you're going to knit 4, purl 1, knit 24, Purl 1, knit 4. Now all you have to do is repeat rows 1 through 16 8 more times for a total of 144 rows, and then you're done knitting. I know you want to, but you cannot cast off because we're going to join the two ends using a different technique. Alright, let's do it. If you're like me, you're gonna want to tighten these loose loops from the cast on. Whatever you do, don't do that. We're going to be remounting these loops, and you're gonna need all that excess yarn. Alright, so take your fabric and you're gonna put this first little tight loop right here. That's actually the first one. You're going to put it back on peg 34. So you can use your hook to kind of pull it out and place it back on that one. And then you're just gonna start taking all of those loose loops and basically stacking them on top of the existing loops. And it can get a bit tricky. You have to sometimes pull pretty tight, and it actually makes the next one a little tighter. So it gets a little tricky as you move forward on this task. You find that the next one gets a little tighter and a little tighter. If that's the case, just pull on the previous ones like I'm doing right here with the hook or your hand, and that's going to give you a little more slack and make it easier to continue remounting your loops on the pegs. So you see, here's your best bet, is to just use your hook to place them back on and keep going. You need to put all 34 of them back on the loom, and it's better to just be patient and, you know, go slowly so that you don't get frustrated. Once you have them all on, again, you see that I'm still having to pull on the previous ones to get the last two done. Those last two can be a little tricky. All right, but you could do this. I got faith in you. So once you put these loops back on, and make sure that that last string is there for you, that you don't lock it in like I just did. Your next step is going to be to take that longer working yarn, which is the one that's still attached, and go around the loom and cut that working yarn, because you're going to use that to sew these two parts together, right? So I will show you how to do that, but first we're going to knit off all of these 34 pegs that are still on the loom. So knit off all your pegs, and once you've done that, you can then take the loops off the pegs. Now I came back here and I made a little knot. Actually, I did two. Probably not the best thing to do until you're totally finished. I did that because, you know, I get ahead of myself. Then get your needle and you're going to thread that longer thread of the two strands, the longer one. You're going to thread a needle and you're going to use that strand of yarn, which you've doubled, to now go from the bottom up, feed the working yarn through that loop. You might find that taking the needle on the end is easier, so you go upward and feed the working yarn through, and on the next one you come from the top down and feed the working yarn through that loop. The next one you're going from the bottom up and feeding your working yarn, and then from the top down. This is going to secure your loops a little better, so just continue to do that. You go up and through, and then down and through. And here I just put a little knot just so that I don't lose it, but I'm going to be taking this knot off once I'm ready to feed the excess yarn through these loops. So you can already see that there's an excess yarn, but I didn't have enough, so I had put a little knot so I didn't lose it. Okay, and then I'm going to put it back through. I'm going to continue to remove my loops, and you'll see that there is excess yarn, which is why I go back and I take the little knot off. If I had cut a longer tail, I wouldn't have had to do that. Alright, so there you see that you do have some excess yarn. Just pull that drawstring towards the other end where your working yarn is loose, and you can just feed it through. See? Easy. And that's it. Your two sides are attached, and if I can say that it looks pretty good to me, you can continue to tighten or reinforce if you like to with your leftover yarn. I'm going to leave it as it is. And then it's time to stretch your stitches, because as you can see, I haven't done that, and you can tell up close the ones that are done and the ones that aren't. When you're ready then and you feel comfortable, you get the needle and you put it back on the thread, and you're going to weave in your ends. Now I start off in one direction and then I come back. I go from the outside of my string, and I did feel I needed to tighten it a little bit more, so that's what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to weave in on the inside. So I go in one direction, and then just to reinforce things, I come down in the different direction. When I feel comfortable, I cut, and that's it. That side is done, and you need to do the other side where you have the other string. And then, just like I said, make sure that you stretch out your stitches really good, otherwise they're going to look funny. And this fabric is going to do well by blocking, so make sure that you block the fabric when you're done. And personally, I added a few beads. I didn't want to sew, so I used a low temperature glue gun. If you're not comfortable with this, by all means get some thread and a needle and sew your beads to your cowl. Alright guys, that's the pyramid stitch cowl. I hope you guys liked it as much as I did. Don't forget to love with your looms.